What's going on, everyone? My name is Infernal Insight, and today I am going to be doing something a little bit different than my usual Skybrowse reaction so far. Actually, I am going to be reacting to a little bit of an older video from Taku and a reaction to the Fat Electrician. The only reason this one popped out to me because it has a lot of real estate agent slander, and I will absolutely not stand for it. All right? No, I'm just kidding. But as a real estate agent, I did want to clear up some things that I did notice in that video, and yeah, I'm gonna give my input on it. And because to me, it seems like that both of them don't really understand how real estate works. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I'm gonna point out a couple of things that to clear up on. All right, so just for a little bit of context, this video is in regards to Craigslist and the Fat Electrician going on about how Craigslist has been a great resource, which it definitely has. And one of his issues are that Craigslist allows people to sell their home for $5 without the use of real estate agents, which it definitely does. Now, the only issue with that is that not everybody wants to sell their home themselves. Now, you don't absolutely need to use a real estate agent. I'll be the first one to tell you that it's not necessarily a hard job, but it is somewhat of a time-consuming job. So the reason that most sellers will want to use a real estate agent is because they don't want to have to go work their 40-hour or sometimes even more job, then come home and respond to 50 different calls asking if the home is still available, and then having to conduct showings on top of that, as well as holding their own open houses on the weekends when they probably have a family or maybe even a second job they have to attend to. So this is the reason why many sellers will use a real estate agent.
Website, and it just keeps growing. People start posting more shit. Pretty soon people are posting rental houses that are available or houses that they're trying to sell. Again,
I see where you're going. Okay, I see where you're going.
Same super straightforward business model. Give me $5, we'll throw your house up on the internet, we'll help you sell it. Okay, literally like the first website on the internet that allowed a home seller to connect to a home buyer by looking at pictures on the internet of the house.
And by the way, all right, as someone, damn, you're gonna call me out for this. As someone that obviously looks into real estate listings, okay, all right, listen, guys, I'm sorry, it's in my blood. I can't stop. I want to stop sometime. I can't stop, all right? Of course, I look into real estate listings, obviously.
Of course you can't stop, Nux.
Real estate's a good investment, guys. All right, now, the reality is, it's annoying as fuck because they don't ever connect you to the actual home buyer. They only connect you to the broker.
Okay, so the first important part here that I believe is that Taku was talking about all the online listing searches that you can go on. So like Zillow.com, Realtor.com, Trulia, all of those different sites, right? Basically, he's complaining that it doesn't connect you directly to the seller. Well, of course it wouldn't, because the sellers have hired an agent to represent them in the sale of their home. So why would it? The comparison here would be like, let's say you commit a crime, you get a public defender, and the prosecution decides to circumvent your public defender and tries to speak to you directly. That's obviously a conflict. So, of course, that the lead aggravation sites are not going to connect you directly with a seller that has hired an agent to represent them. Also, on any of those sites, there is a section where they are sold directly from the sellers. That's called FSBO, or for sale by owner. So if you go to Zillow.com, you can actually search and sort by for sale by owner. And there, it will connect you directly to the seller because that is who is selling the property.
All right, they don't connect you to the seller. They connect you to the broker because the sites work with the broker.
This is sort of correct, but not in the way that he's thinking. The lead sites, they do work with the brokers directly because they do provide leads from the people that are selling their home with an agent, because the assumption is that if there is an agent on the other side, the buyer is going to want an agent to represent them as well. Because in 90% of the times, if you go directly with the listing agent of that property, you are going to enter into a dual agency situation. Now, dual agency doesn't really save you much money in the long run, and you're limiting your representation as well. So I would only recommend dual agency for anyone that has purchased property in the past, or at least has some idea of what they're doing, just because there are some conflicts that can happen with it, and you will not be getting the full representation in a dual agency situation.
So the brokers take whatever fuck 2%, let's say, of the sale. All right. So if the brokers take 2% of the sale, they give 1% to the website.
Okay, I am genuinely surprised he does actually know this, but that is kind of true. Agents on the buying side will partner directly and pay for the leads via closing. So essentially, what'll happen is they'll sign up for these platforms that will send leads from Zillow, from Realtor.com, and essentially, once they close, they will split usually 50-50 with that site. So if it is 2%, it would be 1% split. Now, you as a buyer do not have to go with the Zillow agent. You can find your own representation. Recently, what you have to understand is that a couple years ago, we as agents have been sued under the collective of the NAR, or the National Realtors Association, or the National Association of Realtors, basically because it was deemed that real estate agents were colluding to keep real estate commissions higher. Now, essentially what happened is the National Association of Realtors lost, and essentially now each side has to negotiate their own commission splits. In the past, prior to the NAR lawsuit, what would happen is a listing agent would go up to a seller and they would say, hey, would you like to sell your home? The seller would say, yeah, I do actually want to sell my home. The listing agent would then say, okay, great. I'm going to take either 5 or 6%. And the seller would be like, wow, that's really high. Where does all of that commission go? And the listing agent would say, I'm only taking 2.5%, and I'm going to split 2.5% with the buyer's agent. And the seller would say, well, why am I paying the buyer's agent a commission? That seems like it's going directly against me. Now, the argument for that from the agent's perspective was, well, that 2.5% would actually be the most important marketing budget that you can ever spend. Because essentially what you're saying is, on the MLS, we will pay you 2.5% if you bring us a qualified buyer. And this would syndicate everywhere. So this would basically go across all of the US, where people would be able to see, hey, they're offering a commission here, and if I bring them a buyer, I will get paid. It was guaranteed. After the NAR lawsuit, they decided to disband that idea, and now, as a buyer, you have to negotiate your own commission split with your buyer's agent. It's not really that much of a big change, except that it just changes on paper who it looks like is paying. In my personal opinion, the buyer is the one that's bringing the funds to the table. They're the one that's also paying interest on the loan. So I feel like the buyer is the one that pays for it. There is a lot of debate in the real estate community who is actually paying the commissions, because normally it always comes off of the seller's settlement, but the buyer is the one bringing the funds to the table. So that's where my opinion lies on it.
So the brokers, all right, and the websites work together to fuck everyone and increase housing prices.
No, that's not how it works. Us as agents have no influence under or on the home price. Now, we might have some suggestions for a seller, but a seller is the one that finalizes the price. They are the one that determines the listing price. They're the ones that determine the sale price when they accept an offer. So it all relies on the sellers.
All right, it's impossible to find houses anymore because brokers and websites work together to cut you out and not let you meet people without them in the middle.
Okay, I'm not here to gatekeep, so I will tell you the most effective ways that if you wanted to cut out a real estate agent and that's what you want to do, here's how you would do it. First way is to, again, like I mentioned before, you go on those lead sites and you search by for sale by owner. Right? You can draft your own letter of intent, which is exactly what is used in a lot of commercial real estate deals. You can draft a letter of intent to them on your own and provide that to the title company. Now, if you're in a state that requires an attorney closing, then attorneys might help with a lot of the back end work on it. But if you're in a state that doesn't require an attorney closing, like California, where I am at, you have to be a little bit more hands-on on it. It's still not entirely difficult to do, but sometimes it is better to have representation for that. Now, the other way, if you want to source the deal yourself, you absolutely can do that. If you want to send a letter to a list of homes that meet the criteria you're looking for. So like let's say you're looking for a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, a minimum 1800 square foot home, right? You can pull those records from the tax records and you can mail a golden letter, is what we call it in the real estate industry, saying, hey, I'm a buyer and I'm willing to pay X amount for your home that has 3 beds, 2 baths. Um, and you can source the deal yourself. Maybe you get someone that says, hey, yeah, I actually was thinking about selling, and they'll maybe call you and take your offer. That is the most direct way that you can cut out the middleman if you want to. Now, agents are the ones that are doing that work in the middle there to find people that are willing to sell their home. So if you're going to want to cut out an agent, you have to do that work yourself, because why would agents do it for free and get houses listed for free if they're not going to make any money from it?
To do literally nothing except increase the sale by 2%. All right? Understand, bro. That's a scam, bro. I hate brokers. I fucking hate brokers. It's such an easy way to make money.
It's okay, Nux. I forgive you for your harsh words. But the other thing is, it is not an easy way to make money. The issue is you have to look at it from the 80-20 rule. So 80% of the business is done by 20% of the agents. That means that 80% of agents are left fighting for 20% of the business, which means if you're not in the top 20%, you are probably only doing like 1 or 2 deals a year, if even that. A lot of agents do not close any real estate deals for their entire careers, and they basically spend a lot of money to get into the industry because it does cost quite a bit of money to even get started out of your own pocket. It averages roughly to about $3,300 to $3,500 a year just to be practicing real estate. I mean, that might not sound like a whole lot, but when you are not guaranteed any sort of income, it is a lot to put down on a career that may not pan out at all.
I hate it.
Then they talk and meet in the middle. They go look at the house, they buy the fucking house, and then they don't have to give the real estate agent 6% of the value of their property. Wow, what a great idea. And then Zillow and Redfin and Realtor.com come along and they're like, hey, let's do the same exact thing. We'll make the website a little bit prettier and people can go on the internet and look, and then we're not going to connect them with the buyer. No. We're going to harvest their information and then turn around and sell that information to the real estate agent. And we're going to sell it to the real estate agent for anywhere.
So, you know, another thing that they do is a lot of them work per neighborhood. All right, there are broker mafias. All right, there's no reason why any person should know this. There are broker mafias where essentially different neighborhoods have different brokers that make deals with different websites. So there's multiple brokers looking to find buyers and sellers and connect them and take a 2% cut or whatever it is, okay? So the way it works is that different brokers will work with websites to have the websites only list one broker per area. All right, so essentially the way it works is it cuts out the brokers that aren't paying the websites to promote those brokers. So some brokers are
Again, this is not entirely true. They don't specifically cut people out, but they do want what are considered marketplace, specialists, right? Neighborhood specialists, right? People that know the area a little bit better because they establish a little bit more trust with buyers. Of course, you don't want someone coming from across town to sell in a little neighborhood that someone else has a lot more experience doing, right? So if you're going to present, and I don't necessarily believe this, I feel like market specialist or neighborhood specialist is really just a marketing ploy. Any agent can really sell anywhere. It doesn't take that long to analyze a specific neighborhood in a market. If I take a listing or help a buyer in a specific area, give me 2.5 hours and I will have a full report of the area, where everything is located at, what you're near, what are the comps in the area. It's not that hard to research all of that, but that is what we kind of look for as real estate agents. But a lot of people want that appeal to authority where they want that neighborhood specialist. So that's why the lead sites want like people that are within those neighborhoods to connect to people that are looking in those neighborhoods.
funding to only be seen in certain areas and cut other brokers out of that. That's the broker mafia. And you think that's bad? Wait until you hear about gardeners.
between like $500 and $1,000 per lead, and then that's going to get baked into the real estate agent cost, which is already 6%, but now it's going to be even more because they have to pay this extra fee, and we're going to raise the prices of houses all across the entire fucking country.
This is the worst.
Which is something that Craigslist totally could have done if they wanted to, but they were fine just making $5.
That's crazy, dude. They took $5, right? And they didn't deal with this shit. They didn't deal with any of this. Oh my god, I love Craigslist now. He made me a fan.
Okay, do you understand? Craig literally gave you a way to circumvent.
I will say that Craigslist is absolutely a good place that you could, if you do also want to cut out that middleman to buy your own property. But you also have to be aware of the scams that go on Craigslist. There is a lot of opportunity for fraud and scams to be on any situation where you're trying to cut out a real estate agent. A real estate agent is the one that, employs the, checks. They make sure that they have an ID, that the ID matches the title records. They make sure that all of these things happen, right? Sometimes if you fall for these scams, they will want you to put an earnest money deposit down before you guys even connect to title. And what'll happen is they'll take that deposit fund and then you're basically screwed. So you have to be aware of some of the scams that do happen. Because if you are not, you can get burned doing that.
Having to pay real estate agents 6% of the value of your entire
All right, that's an expensive real estate agent.
fucking house, and no.
I wouldn't work with real estate agents that take more than 2%. You could always bargain them down to 2%.
So this is again going back to the pre-NAR and after NAR settlement. So I think what Fat Electrician here is saying is that he's thinking of the old style where they will walk up to a seller and say, oh, it's 6% and I'm going to split half of it. And Nux is thinking of it from probably the more modern times where everyone negotiates their own percentage, which is the new modern way. So yes, if you work with a buyer's agent, you can literally walk into any real estate office as a buyer and be like, hey, I'm here to list with to buy with an agent. I'm willing to sign with whoever will offer me X%. You can totally do that. Now, there are some brokerages that mandate their agents take basically take a certain amount. They can't take lower than that amount. Now, agents are 1099 contractors. We're not W-2 employees, so we run our own business as we see it under specific parameters. Now, the broker of an office is usually the owner is the broker. Sometimes it's a little bit different, but the broker is responsible for all transactions that happen underneath a real estate office. So they're the ones that get audited by the departments of real estate in every state. They're the ones that have to report to that government agency and make sure that all their files are in compliance. With that, if you enjoyed the video, please make sure you give me a thumbs up and leave some comments in the comment section below. If you have any questions, feel free to ask and I'll be happy to answer them, and give this a share as well. I will also link the original video to Nux and Fat Electrician in here just to make sure you give them some views. I never want to be considered a substitute for original content. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and end it there. Infernal Inside out.